Hello everyone. If you remember, about a month ago I did a video on the Fisker Ocean's front seat and rear seat floor mats. I found a company on Amazon that sells front and rear seats as well as a cargo mat all in one box. So let me see how this compares to the LinerX that I received about a month ago. This one I purchased myself, so I am curious, and I hope this helps people out that want to purchase a floor mat and are not sure which one to get. Let me open this up. All of the different mats are in plastic bags here. Let me take them out. All right, so let's open this one first. Here you can see the design. It has a textured surface, and it has the bumps for attaching to the vehicle underneath. This is fairly thin. It is curved around the edges here. Seems a bit thinner than the LinerX pads. I'll compare those a little bit later. That was the first one I showed you was the passenger side, and this is the driver's side. You can tell because it has a bump out for the dead pedal or footrest and the accelerator right there. Otherwise, it's the same type of design. Here's a closer up look at the texture. Now we have the rear seat, and like all floor mats that are shipped in boxes, they are bent to fit in there for shipping, and you need some time for these to flatten out. If you have a sunny day, leaving this outside is a great idea because it'll take out all the creases. But even if you install it in the car, usually it flattens out in a few days. So here is the rear seat. We have bump outs for under the seat, the center console, and the other seat. Has fairly thick lips around the edges here. This one actually has some grooves here that the other ones don't. But otherwise it is similar to the front floor mats. Just a little bit on the thin side here. You can see I can bend it really easily. All right, I'll put that aside. And for the final, find out which way the bag opens. And here we go. This is the cargo mat. It's actually quite a bit different than the other mats. If you look here, this has a solid finish versus this has a very textured finish. Bring it up for a closer look. So this should help things that are in the cargo area from sliding around. You can hear that. And it is also a fairly thin mat. I'll give dimensions on these in a little bit. And then I'll also test to see how this fits in the car itself. Here's a view of the LinerX mat installed. Now let me remove it. And we just have the carpeted areas. Now we have a comparison This is the LinerX mat. And here's the texture of that. So how do these compare? Let me do a measurement. Now I'm going to look at the thickness of these two. Let me try the LinerX first. I'm going to flatten out the edge here so I can get a good measurement of the thickness here. It's a little bit tricky. I'll zero this out. So I'm getting 1.8 millimeters, 1.8 to 1.9, and that's 0.07 inches. And I'm getting 1.7 millimeters, or 0.06 inches. So the new floor mats are slightly thinner than the LinerX from what I've seen so far, and I can feel a little bit of a difference too. Like I said, these do feel a little bit thinner. And I think I like the texture feel of the thermoplastic on the LinerX better than on this one. When you're looking at the corners, look how this flexes here versus on here. It's a much thicker overlap around the edges. So that's what I've noticed so far. And as you can see, the overall shape of both mats is pretty close to identical. I want to give a little bit of points to the LinerX. It seems to have a thicker edge here when you compare. It sits a bit higher up so that if you do get liquids, water in the trunk area, this will contain it better than the new one I purchased. Just a little bit extra around the edge can make a big difference. Let's install the new cargo cover in. And you need to push it all the way to the front. And it does seem to have very good measurements here. It does line up nicely with the front and the sides. Not bad. You can also see that the tie-down straps still work. Of course, over time, this will flatten out since it was in a shipping box. One difference I see is the handle right here. You have access to the handle underneath. And also, if you want to lift it up, it will bend easily. Not a problem. The LinerX mat did the same thing too. If you want to have access to the front part, you can fold this back and then you can pull this up. Then you can have access to the front part of the cargo area. There's no specific design in this that allows that to work any easier than the LinerX at this point. So it is just a regular flat mat here. Doesn't have any indentations or bend points that allow this cargo divider to this cargo floor to work any differently. So I would say the only difference I see with the LinerX is the thicker lip that goes around the edges that can trap water. Otherwise, functionally, it's about the same. So I give this one good marks for the accurate measurement and fit. Here we have a view of the LinerX rear seat mat installed. Goes from edge to edge. Let's take it out. And now we have the rear seat mats. This is the LinerX and this is the new one. As you can see, very similar design. They both have extensions that go under the seats and also the center console. I kind of like the design of the LinerX better. It has these traction grips that go the whole length of it versus this one is just the front. The depth of the edge around here definitely seems a little bit thicker on the LinerX, and also the thickness of the material is more apparent here. See how the shape is on this one versus on this kind of is folding flat a little bit, not retaining its shape as well. So I give more points to the LinerX for the design and the thickness. But as far as size goes, you get a little bit more coverage with the new mats. As you can see here, you get about an extra 1.5 inches or so under the seats. Center console is roughly the same. Yeah, so that's basically the difference between these two. So I will install this now in the car and show you what that looks like. All right. I usually find these easier to install by having them facing down like this and then having them slide into the seat area in front of them. So let me kind of bend it, see how that goes, and keep pushing it forward until it goes into place. So what I see so far looks good. It is measured very accurately around the edges. Everywhere I feel where it is touching the car is where it should be. Also, the areas around the seats and the center console all fit very nicely. So I definitely give a thumbs up on this new one for the design and the fitment. And since it's a little bumpy in the middle, I'll let this sit for a day or two and make sure it goes flat, and then I'll look at it at that point. And here we have the LinerX mat installed in the passenger footwell here. I will pull it up. Listen for the snap sound. All right, both snaps have released. Pull that out. And now we have the LinerX on the left and the new one on the right. I must say there's actually quite a bit of difference between the two. The walls are the same, roughly the same height, I would say. Maybe a little bit higher on the LinerX. But the angle here is a little bit different. And it looks like it extends about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch longer on this one. The design is different. This one has the long strips for traction. This one just has a little bit here and just kind of more of a design element on this one. I don't think it actually helps performance. And then the edge on here is less pronounced. And if you noticed, looking closely here, you could tell that the material is a little bit thinner here and it's just warping a little bit. You don't have that issue on the LinerX. So the thinner material is making a little bit of a difference on here. And if you notice, the lip on the LinerX gives much more protection to the carpet on this side than this one does. However, this one gives extended protection up higher, so a little bit of a draw. As far as the attachment points, they are here on this one, and on the LinerX, it seems to be a bit more involved. Let's turn it over and look. Yes, so here the design is just the shape that this mold is in that created this. Versus on the LinerX, it's actually a separate module that plugs in and has a plastic. Doesn't look ABS, but it is a more thicker structural plastic that's involved in this for the snap. So I have a feeling that this will snap in and stay connected better than this one does. This one looks like it'll just go over the edge. I'll look at that when I put it in the car and check it out. Let me do that right now. Let me insert the new floor mat inside. I'll push it up. Trying not to hit the camera. All right. Push it all the way down. Yeah, there's no real connection for these little tabs that go on here. It just sits on the tab on this side and this side. It doesn't have an actual snap in, which I'm a little disappointed. The LinerX is definitely superior as far as the security standpoint, that this mat will not move since these two are snapped into place. I mean, it's pretty solid, and I don't think it'll be an issue during everyday use, but I do wish they had used a better snap than this method here. As far as the edges go, there's definitely a nice amount of protection here. It goes all the way up to the door threshold, and you have protection on the carpet area all the way up to here, and then you have also all the way up, further up in the footwell area. So for these new floor mats, I give them a thumbs up for the overall design. The fit is great. It goes all the way to the edges, and it was definitely measured very well. But I gotta take a point off for the connection for the two clips here. It just sits on it. So not really happy about that. But overall, it still gets a passing grade. And now we're by the driver's seat area. We have the LinerX installed. When I remove it, listen to the sound of the clips. And I'll pull that out and away. For the driver's side floor mats, we have the LinerX on the left and the new one on the right. They overall have a very similar design. There's a bump out for the accelerator pedal and also for the footrest or dead pedal here. One thing I have noticed is that the extension on the footrest goes much longer than on this one. It's, I would say, at least 1.5 inches to 2 inches longer on this side for more protection. The sidewalls are roughly equivalent. One thing I noticed is that since this is thinner material, there is a little bit of a flex here that you don't see on the LinerX. See this divot here? Maybe that will go away once it's sitting in the car. But that's one point that I've noticed on this one. As far as the design of the traction, I would say this one probably provides a little bit better grip with those horizontal rows. This one has a little bit right here, but most of this is just design. Don't really think this is adding anything to it. And another thing I noticed is that the attachment points for the clips on these two is very different. This one looks very simple, but otherwise fairly similar design, though I give 2 extra points to the LinerX for the attachment point and the longer footwell. So let's try this in the driver's seat area. And now for the new floor mats. I will slide it in over the seat. and then push it all the way in. The tough part here is hard to tell where the clips are. Let me pull this up a little bit and look. Yeah, it's roughly here. You can feel it is over the clip. The fit is pretty good. It comes all the way up to the edge on the front, on the side by the footwell here, also on the center console side, and also by the seat side. It seems to fit pretty nicely. But as I mentioned, it doesn't clip into these attachment points, and it just kind of sits on them. So I don't get a great feeling of security on this floor mat in case it moves or slides around. I mean, for the most part, it is large enough that it is in place on all the different edges. So I really don't think it'll move around. Also, I noticed that as I mentioned in the comparison, the area where the footrest is doesn't go quite high as it does on the LinerX. So a little less protection on the carpeted area up here and the footwell area there. Otherwise, not too bad. I think it looks pretty decent. And as with the LinerX, there's no labeling on the floor mat itself, which is nice. And I'll be testing all of these mats over the next few days to see if I noticed any difference while driving. And it is daylight outside. I figured it's a good idea to show you what it looks like in the sun. And here we go with the cargo mat. Here is the rear seat mat. Driver's seat floor mat. Another angle on the rear seat mat. And the passenger in the front. So there we go. Overall, I think these floor mats offer a good value for the price. It includes the front and rear mats along with the cargo mat for $200 on Amazon. I think it is a fairly good deal. However, compared to the LinerX, which are more expensive, I think offer slightly better fit and thicker material, especially when I feel it. This doesn't feel as nice as the LinerX. But for the price difference, you may be able to forgive that. So overall, I give it a thumbs up. If you are looking for floor mats for the Fisker Ocean, and a lot of times LinerX may be out of stock, these are a good second choice. I would consider these runners up to the LinerX. And you can find these in the video description. I have the links for these. I purchased these myself, so I didn't get any discount. So just wanted to compare them to my other video, and I thought that you ought to know. So in any case, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.